Okay, so I will introduce now the other speakers who take part of the seminary and the event, one after the other, and then I will invite everyone on the podium to give a short statement to the theme of the event, to their paper tomorrow, or with regard to the talks tonight. This is completely up to you. We will see whether there are issues that we like to ask to each other, and then we will, of course, open the discussion to the public as well. And I would like to begin with Anne-Françoise Schmid. I'm very honored and happy that you were interested in coming and joining our discussions here. Anne-Françoise Schmid is she is in her, retirement from the University in Lyon, and now working as an invited researcher at the chair of Theory and Methods of Innovative Design at the École des Mines de Paris Tech. And as well, she is associated to the Poincaré's archive, the Laboratoire de Philosophie et de l'Histoire des Sciences, at the Université de Lorraine.
Archives Poincaré. Ce sont les archives de Henri Poincaré.
Les archives, hein?
Les archives. Poincaré's archives.
Exactly. And that's where you are a specialist as well, on the thinking and on the philosophy of Henri Poincaré. At the same time, you are an editor of Bertrand Russell and Louis Couturat, and as a philosopher among the scientists, and this has a long history, so I didn't know, you started in Switzerland at EPFL, so ETH in Lausanne, so the Swiss, no, it's not ETH, that's wrong to say, I'm sorry, politically incorrect. It's the Eidgenössische Hochschule, the Technische Eidgenössische Hochschule, but not the one in Zurich, but the one in Lausanne.
That's the reason why you say it in German. No, I'm just joking.
Okay. I'm too slow now. Okay, EPFL, and then INSA, École des Mines de Paris Tech, and INRA. INRA I know mainly because the talks I love so much by Michel Serre, they're all published by INRA. What is INRA exactly?
INRA is the National Institute of Agronomy.
Ah, voilà.
And there are several centers of research, and I was in governance of one of these centers, near Paris.
Yeah. From her work, she's the co-founder of what you call generic epistemology. That will be the main topic of your talk tomorrow as well.
Yes.
And currently, Anne-Françoise Schmid is writing with Muriel Mambrini-Dude a manual for the future sciences. In parallel with non-standard philosophy, a term I think which is largely also developed by François Laruelle, she is searching for a style to write with the philosophies existing, but without depending on one of them in particular, a generic mode of writing. Please.
Thank you. Yes, I am a philosopher in the fields. And I think in philosophy it is, I think, impossible to meet. It's possible to construct bridges, but not to meet. There are some examples of meetings, Descartes and Pascal, Spinoza and Leibniz, Russell and Bergson and James, etc. And it is very interesting that there is no language, no history to describe this. It is a fundamental misunderstanding between philosophies. And I try to explain this particularity of philosophy with the help of the multiplicity of right of philosophies. It is a generic. Because each particular philosophy in general have a lineage of philosophies. For the others, for example, Spinoza, Nietzsche, Bergson, etc. I make the hypothesis that we can have not only a lineage, but a multiplicity of right of philosophy. And in sciences, I saw in laboratories that scientific method was not accepted as scientific. It was in France one of the problems of the climate change. The person who refused the climate change said the science is an alternance between theories and facts. It is very aggressive. It's true, but it is very aggressive. And so I thought it was necessary to open a space to gather the different ingredients of science without the complementarity between theories and experience. It is theory, it is experience. It is model, it is modelization, it is hypothesis, it is simulation, etc., etc. And we have a great space to reorganize this. It's not an entropy of science. It is a creation of dimensions to understand the new objectives, I say, of current science. So, in philosophy, I developed an obscure cogito. It is impossible to understand all the philosophies. And, but the philosophy are not hidden. This is an noble secret. And I try to explain philosophy not in a philosophy, but with tools, devices of generic space to understand the impossible relation between philosophies. I think a philosopher cannot understand the other creator of philosophy. I hear in Collège International de Philosophie in Paris, Derrida present La Ruelle in public. And he said, after presenting, he said, what La Ruelle said, I have not said before. It is the problem of philosophy. It's impossible to understand exactly. If we create a philosophy, the creation of physiology.
He was asking if Derrida has said something that he did not say before.
Yes, qu'a dit La Ruelle que Derrida n'aurait pas déjà dit? C'est impossible de faire autrement. C'est impossible. Si vous mettez en même temps Michel Henry, le français, Derrida, je les deux ensemble, et La Ruelle, dans une même soirée. Alors, in the evening, as this evening, Michel Henry, Jacques Derrida, François La Ruelle, Isabelle Stengers. ensemble. It's no language. Il n'y a rien à échanger. Nothing to exchange. It's not so in art. It's not so in literature. But that can help standard. But in philosophy, it's a very different situation. And in science, it is necessary to have a space to develop independently the different devices for the method. Voilà mon travail. This is my work.
So the generic to help, where in philosophy there is not one language that we can understand each other, and to have to use the generic to order to translate between the different philosophies to communicate.
Yes, but it is difficult.
Yes, I agree.
The study of philosophy is this dice, but there is not for philosophical creator. History of philosophy is this device. Yes. But it's very difficult to see what are the important philosophers now. It's very difficult.
Thank you very much. So we make a round first, and then we relate to all the statements. I would like to present now Philippe Morel, who is an architect and a theorist, co-founder of ECCT, an architect and theorist, co-founder of ECCT, Architecture and Design Research. He's an associate professor at the École Nationale Supérieure d'Architecture in Paris, Malaquais, where he co-founded the Digital Knowledge Program and Department, and he's also a visiting studio master at Bartlett School of Architecture. He lectured and exhibited with ECCT. Difficult word, no, it's a set, not only, it's not 2C, it's a set C. Okay. At international institutes and published widely on computational architecture. His work is permanently in the collection of FRAC, Centre and Centre Pompidou, as well as in private collection. His book, Empiricism and Objectivity, Architectural Investigations with Mathematica, published 2003-04, is the first architectural theory book entirely written in code. What you saw with Ludger's presentation, this as well. No, this was not Rhino or processing. This was Mathematica. So we will come back to this. There's an important difference. Philippe, please.
I need a microphone because I don't have a strong voice. So first I would like to thank you for the invitation. In the past 16 years, let's say, because I really started that work in 2000, I dedicated most of my time studying the relationship between capitalism, computation, and architecture. I work on different concepts, as the one of integral capitalism. In 2000, this concept of integral capitalism was really about trying to address, let's say, the consequences of what was also called at the same time integrated science. It was about the merging of disciplines, not on a pure intellectual way, because I still believe that there are differences between disciplines. I don't believe that big data is flattening everything. It's flattening a lot of things, but I would say not everything. But on a practical and economical level, the merging of disciplines is becoming a new reality, in a sense. Because thanks to the power of the computer, we can transform things which are very disparate, very scattered, into a synthesis which just produces a new economic value. This is what the CEO of DuPont de Nemours, the great chemical company, American chemical company. So the CEO of DuPont said that integrated science is where they produce economic values, where they really make money, because historically DuPont was a company active in chemistry, but now they are active in biotech, chemistry, physics, etc. And they produce the value at the interface of all of these disciplines. So this was my work, let's say, from 2000 to 2007, 8 or something like that. Then, but also at the same time I started in 2004, I really wanted to understand the micro-epistemology of the mathematics which are used in architecture. So this is why I deeply worked with Mathematica starting in 2003, because I was really unsatisfied by the current softwares. Too many black boxes, too many hidden operations, values, variables, mathematical models, etc. So I really wanted to start from scratch with a blank page, which was the case with Mathematica. So I developed this macro epistemological work, and now at the very moment I'm amazingly interested in the idea of randomness. Not randomness in the same way as it was investigated by a couple of modern artists, especially, for example, people like Xenakis or John Cage in music in the US, but something which is more first more mathematical, related to a couple of recent, I mean not that recent, but let's say it didn't exist in the 50s devised about the randomness. But for example, the theory regarding the algorithmic complexity, which came from Kolmogorov and Martin Birlow, the great logician, Gregory Shalatin as well. So I'm very interested in this for one specific reason, is that when we have access to the big data, and it is something which was well said by a logician or mathematician like Giuseppe Longo, Christian Caliot, for example. After a certain amount of information, you can derive almost anything. I mean, you can find correlations and recurrence, repetitivity, after a certain amount of data. This is, by the way, one of the reasons why the bank are making so much money with algorithmic trading, is that it doesn't really matter if the market is depressed or not. As long as you can find some repetitivity, there is a possibility to, let's say, to derive the next step, in a sense. Even if the next step is keep some part of contingency. At some point, you have, let's say, more certainty about what will happen. And I have come to the conclusion that thanks to the massive use of real-time advanced techniques like genetic algorithms, etc., in order to capture the repetitivity, the patterns in everything around us. I mean, it's really about pattern matching, ultimately. Thanks to the capacity of supercomputers to capture patterns, and before this capture of patterns is ideologically oriented, or politically oriented, or economically oriented, we go back to a very old hypothesis which states that randomness, it's almost a kind of Rousseauist hypothesis, the law of nature, pure randomness, what we find in with quantum randomness, is finally the most egalitarian system. So what was perceived in the modern era as something which is arbitrary, opposed to the equality of democracy, etc., finally reappear today as something which is more equal, more egalitarian, more fair than any modern politics, let's say, on any modern economical context. So I strongly believe that this is an issue we have to address in a philosophical manner, because it's quite puzzling to think that absolute randomness is a sort of ultimate equality and freedom.
Ultimate violence as well, I would add.
For some people it's ultimate violence, it's the ultimate uncertainty and lack of justice of nature. Obviously, it's completely opposed to the droit positif. But within the new context of the big data civilization, this hypothesis reveals some of its very interesting philosophical goals.
I'm very curious to hear what Ayache is saying to this.
I don't agree, of course.
I would exactly.
For instance, the market is the one case where there is no randomness at all, according to me.
So, but let me introduce you quickly, and then your statement, and then we get into the discussions. I'm sorry I broke that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And this is why I want to introduce at some point a kind of absolute randomness in your mind.
An absolute again, yeah.
Which means for us sort of absolute free will and absolute freedom.
So I mean, this I would call absolute contingency, rather. Okay. Meaning the future is absolutely open and anything can happen.
So you got some keywords. Ayache was trained as an engineer at the École Polytechnique of Paris. He pursued a career in option market maker. This I love, no? Market making. Okay. On the floor of Matif and Life, I don't know. Life, huh?
Paris and London.
Okay. He turned to the philosophy of probability and to the technology of derivative pricing and co-founded Ito33, a financial software company, in 1999. Today, Ito33 is the leading specialist in the pricing of convertible bonds and in the equity to credit problem, and more generally in the calibration and recalibration of volatility surfaces. This as well, no, the word. If you look at it from a poet, volatility surfaces, and then it's called vanilla smile as well. So, okay, we will hear about that. Ayache has published numerous articles on the philosophy of contingent claims. He is the author of The Blank Swan, The End of Probability, and The Medium of Contingency, An Inverse View to the Market. Please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me and for giving me this opportunity to speak about this field which everyone has of course heard about, which is the financial...
Doesn't work?
No.
I have to maybe...
Yet.
Which is the financial market, and of course today with algorithmic trading and all that, it's becoming more and more publicly known. However, the field or the angle in which I specialize is completely opposite to that, because it is derivatives. So for 10 years I used to be a trader in options after having graduated from engineering school. And in those days, banks, like in the late 80s, were hiring engineers because derivatives are a bit mathematical. So I got involved into trading without really thinking about what was going on. So I did that for 10 years. Then after 10 years, you get completely fed up and washed up also as a trader. This is when I decided to do something intelligent, and I created this company to try now to develop software for pricing of the derivatives. I said that the market is not random, and this I meant to say it in the sense of the algorithmic trading, because it's true that as Ludger has shown us, I suppose that the algorithms for algorithmic trading are not very complex either. They might be maybe a little bit more complex than what we saw, and I completely agree with you, or at least I believe you, that maybe also the algorithms of Google are not complex, because there are so much data that very simply you can work out, you can fill what is missing and try to statistically infer something and generate a rule that the algorithms has to follow and try to guess what people are going to buy next, etc. Fine, but the markets is completely different because of the derivatives. So that's my whole point. My whole point is to say there's never a case where you only have something which is trading, let's say like the S&P 500, which is the equity index, the most liquid one. People who are accustomed to the algorithmic trading point of view, who are devising very simple but very fast algorithms to trade that, are really accustomed to the view where that thing is the only thing that is moving. And I'm sure that you can devise very quick but simple, complex but not complicated algorithms to deal with that. And of course there is a lot of competition because you have to make the extra penny before the other bank makes it, etc. So that's a very narrow view according to me. My view is at the same time you have more than 8,000 options trading on that underlying at once. And you have also options, and I will make that clearer in the talk tomorrow. Options, I'm not sure if you are all familiar with it. These are derivatives. You have standard options and more complex ones. So the standard options are call and puts, which are basically financial contracts which allow you to buy or to sell the asset at a certain predetermined price in the future. So options are very standardized claims that you buy and sell, and these things become financial assets in their own right. Therefore, they are open to the market trading as well. And I was a specialist in trading of those. But the problem that I'm trying to make clear here is that at once you have multiple dimensions that open, because you have one underlying trading, but on top of it, you have immediately a two-dimensional table of options trading, because you have all the maturities of the options and all the different predetermined prices at which you can exercise the right to buy or to sell, meaning to say that for one underlying you might have immediately thousands of options trading, and you have market makers who every second have to show to the public, to the market, prices on those options. So that's the difficult task that the algorithms that we are building in my company are supposed to solve, is how to, at every second, generate 8,000, 10,000 potentially bid and ask spreads, meaning asking prices and bidding prices on all those options. And this requires a very complicated algorithm. Why? Because you find that, and this industry has been going on now for more than 40 years in a very liquid way. You find that because those options have become traded on their own rights, so they became liquid. So if you go to the market in Chicago and ask your broker to buy for you an option, you immediately get an end quote. So I'm saying that the S&P has generated a population of options which are liquid. So because they are liquid, they become an input to the algorithm. And then you have financial theory, because there's money involved here. You cannot fool around. You have to make sense of it. So there is structure that you need to find in order that the market maker be able to produce instantly 8,000 prices which are not arbitrageable. That's the key thing, where the theory and the structure comes in. So you have to be a market maker, produce all those prices, and you don't want anyone to just by buying from you and selling to you make money out of you immediately. This is the biggest, this is the financial principle, and in order to solve that, you have to build complicated algorithms, which we are building in my company. And in that case, you find that in order to do that, the probability distribution, to go back to what Ludger was showing us, can no longer be as simple as the one that he used to generate the randomness, where I suppose you did like a uniform distribution or something like that, a very simple wheel that you spin to generate the numbers. In order to make sense of the option prices, you have to imply very sophisticated probability distributions and which require algorithms that take time to run and are very complicated in terms of code. And because of that, you have here a situation where the randomness is completely open, because what I just said is that as soon as you have something which is trading very liquidly, which is the S&P 500, like the basic asset, you immediately have options trading on it which become liquid themselves, because we have now ways of pricing them, and they become in the hands of the market makers. And as soon as that happens, there is something very important which is specific to the financial market, which will take us to absolute contingency and to the future being open, is that options will then be written on those options. So there is levels that build upon levels, because as soon as something, no matter how complex it is, becomes traded, it becomes a basic price, so it will admit of options trading on it. So you have complexity also growing in the vertical dimension, and because of that, I can show you almost mathematically that if you have all those prices liquidly present in the market, no algorithmic trading can be successful. Trading of the underlying, the basic underlying, because any algorithm that anyone could be trading to trade the underlying would be implicitly pricing some option at a different price than what is happening in the market. So this problem here is what leads me to start thinking, exactly like Ludger said, as soon as the computer was able to generate a design which won a contest, then we decided to think about and write books. This is exactly what happened in my case. As soon as the Black-Scholes formula was invented in 1973, which gave us way of algorithmically finding the values of options, then I thought, and we all thought, that something was wrong, because how an algorithm could tell me the price of something that the market is supposed to give me, not an algorithm. So this problem, how could an algorithm evaluate the option in place of the market, is the SMILE problem, which really drove me into writing all these books. And to come to a conclusion, which I hope tomorrow I'll make clear to you, at least dramatize that conclusion, which is that it's not probability as we know it that should apply in the market, and not algorithm as we know them, but something else which I'm still researching.
Wonderful. Yeah, but so let's pick this up now. So we have, I'm introduced, you are introduced, so we have the introduction round. What I would like to pose as a question now, we have two votums for absoluteness. My talk was against absoluteness, so I'm very interested in that. So we have absolute contingency on your side, Ellie. We have absolute randomness on your side, Philippe. Can you challenge each other?
I think we agree.
What is, maybe to put it more precisely, what is the role of data in the difference, if there is a difference? Contingency, randomness. It's hard to imagine or to say, how is that different at all? Randomness and contingency. What is at stake? And how is the role?
Randomness in my sense is randomness in the sense that you find a random generator, that there is at hand a probability distribution.
Yeah.
And this, I argue, you cannot find, because if you could find it in the market and generate numbers by an algorithm that is more or less simulating the distribution, it will immediately kill the market on a certain level of options, because they become what we call redundant, so meaning they will not require a market anymore. Now, my hypothesis is that you should have a market anyhow, no matter what. Yeah. This by itself opens up any distribution that you have, it blows it away. And this is what I call absolute contingency, meaning there is no structure anymore. You cannot specify any stochastic structure in the market if you agree with me, and you may not agree, that a market, financial market, means that any derivatives of any level of complexity has to trade freely in the market. And if you have that, you can show that you cannot have any stochastic structure, therefore no randomness in the sense that you have a probability distribution, if you will. So you can call it absolute randomness. I agree with you. I mean, that's another word for saying that it has no structure.
If you look at the quantum randomness, for example, there is no way to have a probability distribution different from the most basic one, actually. So this is why, if you manage to find a pattern in something, if you can predict this pattern, it means that you can obviously devise an algorithm, but if you are capable of writing an algorithm, you lose the absolute contingency because you have something deterministic and unpredictable. But if, for example, you generate numbers with quantum numbers generators, there is no way to obtain this sequence of random bits without generating it from scratch. I mean, you cannot predict it. This is what was theorized mathematically by Kolmogorov and algorithmic complexity. So this is what I'm interested in a sense, in the fact that you can only come afterwards. Mm-hmm. You cannot predict it, and in a sense, giving a prize at some point, it's trying to devise the values for something which will come after. And now it seems that more and more we don't really look for a prize in the future, but we just try to make sure to make use of the analysis of patterns. Mm-hmm. There was a couple of examples with strategies in games. Actually, I mean, you just play cards or whatever, and you look for different strategies. Any strategies can be understood by algorithms. The only strategy which is not understood by algorithm is in fact the pure absence of strategy, which is pure
Cunning reason.
randomness. and in that case, what Ayache is saying that only the market can give the price, let's say on the fly, and that the algorithm is something. It's something like that. If you play cards with a certain strategy against an artificial intelligence, especially if this artificial intelligence can compute extremely fast because there are a number of really powerful computers, you will always lose. There's no way at the moment to win with any strategy except with a complete lack of strategy. And the complete lack of strategy, which is the no strategy at all, is similar epistemologically, but in a sense almost mathematically, is similar to the absolute randomness and absolute contingency. So this is what I mean. I mean, if you behave in such or such a way on the internet, you can be sure that maybe Facebook and Google or whatever, they will always manage to understand the way you behave and to predict the next step. Even if you try.
If you follow a strategy. Yeah.
If you follow a strategy, even the weirdest strategy you can imagine, even for you, according to your past experience, it's a super complex strategy, etc., etc. There's no way to win. The game is lost. So the only way to protect yourself from prediction, in a sense, is to refuse to enter this game and to use this absolute contingency. Whatever the way we define it, is also a cover of incompressibility. I mean, if you cannot compress the data, if you cannot write algorithm, then it's fine. And it seems, according to Ayache, that at the moment you cannot write algorithm to derive values after a certain amount of layers and complexity. If I understood well what is evoked.
But may I ask a question? Yeah, because I'm wondering if you are flipping a coin, so according to Kolmogorov, this would produce a sequence, an infinite sequence, I suppose, of ones and zero, which is random in the sense that it is completely random, right? I mean, there's probability 1. However, I would then say that if that is the case, if somebody is flipping a coin to generate the upward movement or downward movement of a stock, then of course it's so random that no one can beat the market and guess ahead of the step what the next movement is. However, if you go to the next level, which is derivatives, here you have an algorithm which is Black-Scholes that tells you that I know what the value of the option written on that stock should be, because you move to the next level where randomness on the lower level produces a number which we call volatility, which is known, or which in the case of the coin is the probability of the coin. I know that the coin is fair, so I know that probability is 1/2. So 1/2 is not random, it's one number, and with that, in the market, I could then not predict, but better compute the value of the option. But I'm saying that even shouldn't apply at that level, because we will have a market for options which will contradict the algorithm. So I'm just wondering whether I'm not speaking, about something even worse than Kolmogorov, flipping of the coin, or... something which I cannot personally at this stage put even into the framework of probability theory,
exactly.
because it's blowing any level of distribution.
And I think this is where Ludger has something to say as well.
So this is what I really don't like, this idea that we have to go to these entropic things with absolute randomness or absolute contingency, and then there's nothing, so we just put it on. So this should be the solution for this situation. I don't like, as an architect, I don't like that. But I think, and this is how I think these complex arguments and concepts. I always think that there is one way to this. The random is horizon. So it's entropic horizon. So it's like in Renaissance with the perspective drawing. So we have all these things to the horizon. So we have a real thing, draw all the lines in there, whatever proportion it is, and so on to the horizon. So that's one thing. So and then the horizons has everything and nothing. So that's an entropic point. So but it's a turning point. So because there are lines coming out of these horizons, and they are aliens. These are models in Renaissance. So they are not alien. So they are pretty specific. They can have any specificity while being specific. So they have millions of faces. This is what the options are doing, in my perspective.
I mean, I don't want you to get me wrong. I started saying there is no randomness in the market, there is price structure.
Yeah.
So as I agree with the architect here, I'm saying that no, we require market makers to offer a non-arbitrage structure of prices for the 8,000 options, and that puts structure in that. So I don't think that the market is the anthropic thing that you
different. I think that's very interesting. And for example, it's very simple with this machine learning to predict weather, because weather is somehow so. It's very simple. You can have a prediction next day with very few techniques, 90-95% precision. So very simple. So why not with the markets?
Because of derivatives.
Because the markets are thinking about that. So because they all use this kind of stuff.
No, because of derivatives, precisely. If you don't want to look at the derivatives market, then you're fine. You're with the anthropic thing that you will predict. But if you agree with me that the market is not thinkable without everything, meaning all the layers of derivative, then you enter into something else, which I describe as I compare to writing a poem.
Yeah, this
rather,
is what I would say.
Rather than generating randomly.
If you're in weather forecast, then you are on the projective line to the horizon, towards randomness. The derivatives are coming out of it. They are aliens. So they're completely artificial. They can combine things as they like. And they have millions of faces. And therefore they're pre-specific structures.
But yet you have to price them today. So.
Yeah. So, but therefore, they can grasp them, because the moment you start, they change, because they have million faces. So they are aliens, they're coming out of random, where, for example, a weather forecast is going into random, or car driving is going into random. But it's interesting, I think, with the derivatives and with markets, that they are coming out of it. So therefore, they are aliens. And this is what I think. How we can survive or get a person, a digital person, a digital citizen. Citizen is just to get these pre-specificity, to get these things out of to play this game of these aliens, getting millions of faces. And by that, you are out of the specificity of model. And if you're doing that, these algorithms, machine learning, can predict what you're doing, and you don't. It's completely random what you're doing. Because they always need the horizon.
So if I may, I know this is painful, it would be fantastic to go on, but I would like to ask Anne-Françoise, generic and randomness.
Yes.
how do you see the relation?
The relation is indirect. The problem for me is this, and two a little different. It is a difference between data and facts. Data can be used by every discipline. Facts are correlative of disciplines and theories. They are not the same order of things. And we can have another method to predict if the problem is to predict such. It is to take an object or a concept. An object is a concept with a connection with reality. If we take a concept, we can decide that this concept is not a given, but an X. And the analysis becomes very different because the X is partially unknown. And to analyze, we have to specify different spaces. A space without logical properties for the concepts. No true, no false. And a space with logical properties. True, false, axiom of choice, etc. This construction is a construction of École des Mines de Paris. And if you have a concept X, you can analyze this concept with properties. Collective choice. And if we will change this object, we can supprime by hypothesis one of the fundamental hypotheses. So we cannot more use the knowledge who correspond to this property. And so you have to use new knowledge. And it is in the same time a construction of alternative concept and an extension of knowledge and a reorganization of knowledge. So this method was developed developed with the idea of the compatibility of a theory of forcing of Cohen, and now there are some research between this method and category theory. And this method is used in France, the composer François Nicolas, etc. It's not the method. The data are important, and there are some theories of e-learning in Paris. But it is another method for invention and creation. So in Paris now, several schools and universities are linked now about project on creation, and École des Mines is a partner of this movement now. So we can start with the data and after construct facts and integrities, but we can reverse the problem and to start from concepts to have some different relations with the data. It's another method.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to go following up all these questions. Tonight, before we open the discussion to the public, I would like to ask you, Marcel, law, the generic, randomness, contingency. You said in the beginning, law is whenever there is no way to decide. That's when we need law.
Yes.
How do you see this context?
Okay, look, I'm just a simple lawyer. And I mean, you're all talking in very complicated terms about if you know the future or not. Essentially, you don't. The future is there where it belongs before us. It is not yet happening. And the point is essentially, of course it is important to know, perhaps or wouldn't we, etc. If you don't care, if it's just money, if it's about your wife or mother or son or daughter, it's a completely different decision. I mean, as what all the algorithms would say, perhaps you would think twice. It's different if you invest money. It's different if you invest your last 10 euros or not. What all the discussions about knowing the future simply disregard is how important is the decision that you find. I mean, most people I know don't invest, for example, in markets because they need the money to live now, today, not tomorrow. And most people I know.
I agree completely.
Oh, okay. I know. I know. We agree on most points.
Show it.
Exactly.
The future is open.
Exactly. The point is, in fact, I find that a really very Protestant discussion about who do I know tomorrow what will happening. If you are serious and honest, no, you don't. I mean, essentially, if you say, I know, you say, things will not change. Based on our experiences now, tomorrow, this will happen. But that's the point of life. Things change. And if you have a probability of 999 out of 1,000, the one that changes everything, the game changer, is that one in 1,000. And we're talking about that one. I mean, my mother told me about Alexander because of Alexander the Great. A complete idiot trying to win the world. Unfortunately, he really succeeded in everything. I mean, to give you a more bad example, Hitler was so successful because he was not rational. Everyone said, oh, he will not attack. Yes, he did. And he was successful because everybody thought he was rational. To my mind, I love numbers, I love statistics, I love probabilities, etc. But the problem is, whatever you're talking about, the future is not fixed. It will happen tomorrow, or in an hour, or in 2 minutes, and you simply don't know what. You know what will happen in 2 minutes when you're living a boring life. Everyone who's living an interesting life doesn't know what is happening. So I'm really thinking, all the algorithms, it's really nice, but all the algorithms are based on the fact that people don't change. But sometimes, I'm a criminal lawyer. And someone who kills, a murderer, 99% 0.999% of his day. He's just like you and me. It's just in 2-3 seconds or minutes that he's killing. The rest, he's as boring as you and I are. So it is about these specificities, about these extraordinary moments, and if you are honest with yourself and me, these are the only moments that count, right? That's about, sorry?
It's a mix. It's not a given.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes. So we all agree.
So we all agree. Let's take this as a statement and open to the
You don't know the
questions
future.
in the audience. Anyone?
Vous pensez que le présent est donné? Le présent n'est pas plus donné que le futur.
Oui,
Et le futur
moi,
n'est pas un tout, c'est aussi un...
complètement d'accord.
Complètement.
Complètement.
C'est aussi un mode. D'ailleurs, les linguistes là-dessus...
Le défaut de français, c'est vraiment effrayant. Je comprends. Gagner de l'argent, c'est l'argent.
Non, c'est carrément. Au contraire, le marché n'est pas...
Exactement.
Can I ask a question about the market? And it's a question about the pricing of derivatives. Because, as I understand it, the market as such, buying a bond or buying a share, is fundamentally a bet in probability. Whether the price is up or down. And what we have in the derivative market is a secondary market, which is an attempt to hedge bet, to attempt to offset the losses of that bet, which is to say to do something fundamentally impossible, which is to make betting risk-free. Right? And so what the derivative market does, and why the derivative market is more complicated than anything that has been discussed, and why Elle is thinking about this in a very interesting way, is to understand how that attempt to stop risk, to limit risk, actually produces systemic risk within the system. And fundamentally, the crash of 2008, 2009 is a result of that attempt to do the impossible, to have a market must be based upon risk, to then use the impossible to create results that cannot fundamentally happen in the market. And so what I would just like you to think about for a minute to unpack is that market of derivatives and why that's complicated. Those complex financial products that then are attempted to fundamentally do the opposite of what the market ought to do. And you're saying, I'm trying to think about something that is beyond predictability or beyond risk. And this third thing, I'm not clear what that is, but I'm suggesting that it might be that there's an effect as a result of that market in derivatives that in the attempt to stop the risk from...
I never said that you hedge the risk with derivatives.
No. Well,
the only way to hedge the risk...
I'm saying that. That's what derivatives are. Derivatives are an attempt to hedge the derivative market.
No, I've never
Okay,
said...
go on.
The only way to hedge a risk is to sell back the thing that you have. That's the only way. If you own something, a stock, and you buy a derivative, you become immediately exposed to the other parameter, which is volatility. So I can call you, on the contrary, a speculator on volatility. And there's no end to the layers that you build. In the books that I write, in the company, in the algorithms, there is not at all the logic of hedging the risk and reducing the risk. On the contrary, but then you ask me, what is the logic of it? Are we just happy to build more risk? No, actually, the answer comes from the future. because the future is not computable. The only way that I look at derivative is the following. If you, again, to go back to that stock that goes up and down, going up and down is a very basic measure. As soon as you become a little bit sophisticated in it, you might wonder, you might ask questions whether, how volatile it is. Is it going to move up and down in a very wide movement or not? Is it going to jump all of a sudden, or is it only diffusing? All those questions, which in statistics can be measured by very precise statistics parameters, which are like the jumps or the volatility, you can write as derivatives and trade as derivatives. That's how the complexity builds in, and it's not, you shouldn't shy away from it. There is no way out. Because as soon as something is completely open to the future, who knows what can happen? Tomorrow there might be another crash. The company that you're investing in, something might happen. As soon as you have this openness of the future, every single happening or accident that can happen to the trajectory of the price, this you can write today as a derivative and it will have its own price today. So all I'm saying is that actually in the market, we have abandoned a long time ago the whole paradigm of statistics. We don't need to study historical data and past data because the market is all looking at the future. Yeah. Derivatives and the richness of derivative is what replaces any statistical analysis that you have. And this was created naturally. It's not that people who were ill-minded created derivatives to produce more risk. As soon as you are having something which is an economy, and by definition an economy is turned to the future, and you are not planifying the economy, and as soon as you have a financial market, which is the way that you have to throw money in the economy, you will have a stock exchange. We all agree with that. And in my book I show that as soon as you have a stock exchange, you have all the derivatives in all their complexity. There is no limit. Because as soon as something trades, a derivative trades. As soon as a derivative trades, a derivative on the derivative trades, so on and so forth. And this is how I get to the point where ultimately I'm saying, there is no Uber algorithm that can capture all that. The only algorithm is the market, which is not an algorithm. So it's completely outside prediction. So what is it? It is the future today, in a sense, metaphorically speaking. So it is as complex and as massively unpredictable as the future.
Yes, no, I agree with that. No, we agreed on that, right? No,
sorry.
I understand that. What I'm saying is that when you're in a situation in which you are bundling up products into futures, for example, right? In which you are selling on the possibility of the repayment of a debt or the cancel of product in a future, right? At that point, you are hedging your bet. You're hedging your bet in the market, and that's what those products were sold as in 2008, 2009. Whether the market now believes that, of course, is a different question. But at that moment when the market collapsed, there was a belief that those complex financial products were based upon the idea that you could buck the trend, that you could somehow buy the product and hedge your bet at the same time. And it is that systemic risk, that's what produced systemic risk within the system that collapsed the market at that point, right? And so I'm just interested in the gesture that is both a bet on a product and the attempt to hedge the bet at the same time, and which results in market failure.
I mean, again, you cannot hedge a bet except by unwinding the bet. The CDOs that caused the crash weren't hedging anything. It was, and people who invented them were not ill-minded. They invented them because they thought that people with no income could really go into the housing market. So it was a very clever idea, and it turned wrong because then it generated a kind of speculative bubble because all the people who were structuring it were amazed with the success, etc. So with everything that you invent, every technology has a speculative bubble. But no one was hedging bets. I mean, you were structuring.
Yes, of course they were. Why else were they buying them?
Hedging what bet?
Why else were people buying CDOs if it wasn't to hedge the bets against against the risk that taken out of the market. Of course, that's what CDOs were.
If you've seen the movie The Big Short.
Yeah, I've read it.
Yeah, on the contrary.
That's a very reductive version of.
Okay, the guy went to the bank for the bank to invent for him a derivative to take, not to hedge the bet, to take a big bet on the market collapsing. So it shows you that derivatives are inventive way that you can structure in order to I mean, you call it placed bets. Yes, if you want to play a movement like that because you know that it will generate money, but he wasn't hedging a bet. I mean, if you hedge a bet, how can you hedge a bet with something else which is different by nature from the bet? It will generate a structure which is not neutral, right? Just as
yes, that's my point.
Okay.
That's my point. So what happens?
Maybe you are thinking about the futures. Futures
yes.
are the simplest of derivatives, which are derivatives which are linear in price. They don't have convexity, therefore they're not sensitive to volatility, which I said is the other number. If somebody wants to ensure that, for instance, the prices of crop do not go up in the future because he's somebody he wants to cultivate his fields, etc., he can buy a futures contract that will guarantee for him the price of the stuff he's going to buy in the future. Yes. So you can call this not hedging, you can call this guaranteeing a certain price as of today. But even though that's the important thing, even though that future contract is written on the future with a delivery date, etc., the price of the future contract is as of today, and tomorrow the future is different. Every day the future is different, meaning tomorrow the price of that future contract will be different from the price of yesterday. So derivatives, even though derivatives, people are annoyed by derivatives because they think that we are writing down conditions that are completely framing the future and robbing us of our future because we are framing the future on paper. No, on the contrary, derivatives are adding complexity to the present because those derivatives are pieces of paper that are trading as of today. And tomorrow their prices will be completely different in a completely unpredictable way
yes.
from today.
Yes,
on the contrary, the future has opened.
Of course, I understand that. My point is the multiplication of complexity.
Yeah.
Right. And what we're trying to understand is what happens when you multiply complexity. Because obviously the future is an event that happens to arise.
Yeah. What happens?
In a way that is unpredictable, etc. But it is the structural complexity that faces that, right? And that's what I would like you to try to think about. That in the situation we face in 2008, 2009, the nature of that structural complexity was such that the only result could be that it couldn't accommodate anything that happened in the future, that in many ways that betting against the market would have been the intelligent thing to do if we'd understood that what was building up was a complex structure that resulted in a misunderstanding of what was going to happen.
I mean, complexity is there. There will be flash crashes. There will be major crashes. The big mistake that they made in the crisis is to bail out the banks. The banks should have lost the money and taken the loss and go bust. Not just one, but all of those who have lost the money.
Exactly.
Because in the market, the first rule is that you have to take the loss and continue. But I'm not shying away from the complexity. I'm saying, unfortunately or fortunately, because the future, let's not be naive about it, the future is not simple. I mean, it is completely open. If we want to be serious about an economy and the market, you have to have all this complexity. Or else let's look into completely radical alternatives to money, economy, and stock exchange and all that.
And if I not so deep into the actual politics and reality of it, from a philosophical point of view, it is a question whether complexities can be multiplied at all. No? Because complexities, if they're complex and not complicated, are not countable. That's what makes them complex. But if they're not countable, it doesn't make sense at all to say we are multiplying.
The future is more complex than the complexity. The future is more complex than the complexity.
That's the point we were talking about, contingency, randomness, the artificial randomness, the computable randomness, the computable contingent. That's what we are driving and circling all around. And I don't think we can solve it tonight, but it's fantastic to have it open and on the table like this. I would like to invite if there are other questions. From somewhere? There is one.
Just one point. We're discussing can you predict, can you not predict, and so on. Is the only thing which everything comes down to what can you do? It's about you cannot predict how the future will be. You could try to predict how it will change until the future will come. But all you can do is change. So you're changing now. What comes later on. So you can observe how things change, and that the things you observe influence your strategy in how you change things. And so you cannot predict how your strategy will be in the future, and you cannot predict how things will change in the future. And everything which it comes down to is observe now, and everything which this observation is good for is the next step you do. Because after the next step you have something new to observe.
So you're asking someone in particular, I assume?
No.
No, you have to address it. Otherwise it's too open. You have to address it, please. And then we will, I think, call it a night and continue tomorrow morning, 9:30.
The question is why, or
Okay, please.
Is it that important to think about later on when we are now?
Please, Anne-Françoise.
We don't know the future, but the future is a cut in the present. This function of cut, this we can know. It's a function. Function is not only a dance, it's a modus. It's a modus. Yes. So we have in the first moment to distinguish future and the tense, and to see the function. This function is a cut in the present.
Thank you all very much.
It's a device to know the present.
Yeah.
The present is not given.
Yeah, so the present is almost richer than the future.
Yes.
The future is part of the present.
Absolutely.
That's true. The market, of derivatives is so complex, but as I said, the prices are now, even though the instruments are coding something that we deliver in the future.
I think this really is a fantastic statement, no? To say the present is so much richer than any future. So when we make the future predictable upon the present, is it not really that we make the present much, much poorer than it is?
So is it.
See you, if you like, tomorrow morning, 9:30, at the Department for Architecture Theory and Philosophy of Techniques.
That's a title.
That's a title.
Again?
Thank you all.